Giuseppe Conte says that the European Union should act in an appropriate and coordinated manner to help countries most affected by the virus. Mr. Conte says the European Union needs to rise to the challenge it calls the biggest test since World War II. This was his first interview with British media since the outbreak in Italy 7 weeks ago. He was speaking at a time when Italy and some other European Union countries are trying to push more economic members of the bloc to issue the so-called Corona bonds, debt sharing that will help all European Union countries pay them off. The Netherlands in particular opposed the idea, which led to a clash between finance ministers of the Eurozone, and the Italian Prime Minister told the BBC that European leaders were facing a date with history they could not miss. If we don't seize the opportunity to put a new life in the European project, the risk of failure is real. Italy's infection rate is slowing. The latest numbers show positive conditions, just over 1% more than in the previous day. 2 weeks ago, the rise was 7%. Care homes in Europe are struggling with rising virus deaths. Italy extends closure, but hopes to turn. The death toll also shows signs of falling from 919 2 weeks ago to 542 deaths in the past 24 hours. But Giuseppe Conte warned Italy against lowering its caution, saying that the national closure imposed on March 9 could only be gradually phased out. We need to choose sectors that can resume their activity. If scientists confirm this, we may begin to actually ease some measures by the end of this month. Conte won approval for his government's handling of the crisis. A recent survey by Demos showed that his acceptance rate increased from 46% to 71%, but critics contend that the restrictions announced in the first few days have been slow and intermittent. He initially resisted a push by some politicians in Lombardy, the northern region hardest hit by the disease, to impose tougher measures more quickly. When a Chinese Red Cross delegation arrived in Milan in mid-March, they criticized what they saw as a lax closure of Italy. But the Prime Minister defended the work of his government. "Going back, I will do the same," he said. "We have a completely different system than China. For us, restricting constitutional freedoms was a critical decision that we have to consider very carefully. If you had proposed closing or restricting constitutional rights in the beginning, when there were first groups, people would have taken me crazy.